Welcome. I'm JP Eggers, your professor for strategy, change, and analytics, and here's a brief introduction to get us started for the entirety of this module. So, what am I going to try and accomplish here? First, I'll do a quick introduction for the class. I'll try and link strategy and analytics and try and tell you about why these pieces fit together so well in my mind, and I'll provide a rough overview of the course, not to substitute for reading the syllabus, but as a complement for reading the syllabus. But first, let's have a little fun with movies to get us started. So let's make a movie. Now, when I typically teach classes face-to-face, I like to start with some sort of a pop culture interactive experience to try and get things moving. Unfortunately, since I'm not going to see you guys until we're actually together for the module, I'm going to have to do this a little more remotely instead, but I'll use kind of a similar structure to try and help get things going. Now, the goal here is to try and think about making a movie. And in order to do that, there's many ways we could go about this. I could give an assignment. You guys work in groups, come up with an idea. We pitch them. We get feedback, stuff like that. Instead, we're going to go with more the crowdsourcing model for how to go about this. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to say, let's decide what kind of movie that we want to make. So we'll do this by picking a genre. So romantic comedy, Western, documentary, science fiction, whatever it is that you'd like to make. So look at the list and think about what movie you want to make. Go ahead, really. Think about what you want to make, what movie you want to make, and maybe write it down so you can keep track of what you've got in front of you. All right, got it? Cool. Next, in order to figure out what we're going to do next with our movie, I'm going to give you a set of plot lines. And so here's 6 different plot lines you can choose from. A girl trying to avenge her dead father, man going to jail for a crime he didn't commit, life as a penguin being difficult, a crew finding an alien specimen, a man going on vacation to forget a bad breakup, and a group throwing a wild party. So decide what kind of a movie that you want to make, what the plot line you want to have for the movie is, based on the decision to some extent that you made in the first round around genre. All right, you got it? You sure? Okay, make a note to yourself again to keep track, just so you can keep track of the kind of movie you're going to make here. Last, we need to pick a setting for our movie. Where is it going to take place? On a college campus, Antarctica, small town Texas, a Hawaiian resort, a faraway planet, a small New England town. Think about the choices you made before and decide where you want our movie to be set. You got it. All right then. So let's then try and think about these choices that I've asked you to make to think about the movie that you've come up with. Now, it's pretty clear that many of these decisions that I asked you to make fit very well together. There's certain pieces that just intuitively seem to be very complementary to one another. So there's the idea of a Western, where there's a girl trying to avenge her dead father, set in small town Texas. This is True Grit. We got a science fiction movie about finding an alien specimen on a faraway planet. This could be, well, I'll go old school first, a little more new school as well. We've got a drama about a man going to jail set in a small New England town. If you're not sure what this one is, it's, I believe, still the top-rated movie, user-rated movie on IMDb, The Shawshank Redemption. We got a comedy about a wild party set on a college campus. Again, I'll prefer to go old school with Animal House, but you could go with any number of later subsequent movies as well. We've got a romantic comedy about getting over a bad breakup set at a Hawaiian resort. This is Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And a documentary about life as a penguin being difficult set in Antarctica. No, it's not Happy Feet. I said it's a documentary. Instead, it's March of the Penguins. Okay? Now, there's some thoughts I want to try and pull out of this. Not all of these decisions we were making were created equal. When I asked you to vote on genre, it was kind of wide open. You could pick whatever genre you wanted. But after you picked your genre, you were at least thinking about that as you were making other choices for the plot line and for the location of the movie. Do we want to have a documentary on a wild party, a Western set in Antarctica? These feel like somewhat different choices, and the idea is that the first choice you made constrained and affected the subsequent choices you were making. What that suggests is that part of what it means to create value, and I'll go into more of this in a later video, But part of what it means to create value is about the fit between the different resources, the fit between the different decisions that you make. And that means that some choices are constrained because of the other activities, the other resources you've already pulled together here. And then these kind of paths emerge organically for how to create value based upon what we're trying to do. So casting Jennifer Aniston or Jennifer Lawrence or whoever you might want to go with in our romantic comedy, having James Cameron direct our Alien Encounter movie. These are kind of obvious and intuitive choices that seem to fit well together and will create value. But at the same time, anything you may have learned in strategy or economics or marketing, or in many cases in the real world in any of these roles, is the need to differentiate yourself from others, to not just be similar to other firms, but to be different in some real way. The Westerns are always set in small town Texas. There's dozens of movies with a coming of age, wild party theme or an alien encounter, whatever it might be. So to create more value than your competitors, you have to have a more unique position, finding some counterintuitive decisions that link the different pieces together. So we can go back to some of our examples from before, and there's some relatively easy counterintuitive examples to come up with. We could set our science fiction movie in the Old West, Cowboys and Aliens, a pretty good graphic novel series and a pretty lousy movie. Or we could flip it and set our Western in space, and Serenity in the Firefly TV series. We could set our Western in a tree. Bug's Life from Pixar is effectively a Western set in a tree. We could do our comedy in prison. Again, I'll go old school first, but we also have some more recent things to choose from as well. And we could make our penguins have a crazy adventure. Here's where the Happy Feet or Madagascar piece would come back in. So how does these ideas relate to strategy and analytics? Well, strategy is about the ability to identify when you should conform to expectations, when you should put together the pieces that fit well together in ways that maybe help customers understand who you are and what you are able to offer, capitalize on some of the best practices in the industry, but also when to diverge, when to try and create unique value for your customers that's very different from what others are doing, and try and anticipate future trends as they emerge and evolve in the industry. Now, analytics has the potential to offer incredible tools that help us to go after these questions and think about these big strategic questions. What are the typical expectations of customers? What kind of are the critical decision factors that they include when deciding what product or service to purchase? What are we good at as an organization? What are our competitors good at? What are maybe some of these counterintuitive combinations that might work given the external environment? And what future trends might be coming down the pipe that might change and alter preferences and can create new opportunities in the external environment? So again, analytics offers a lot of tools that may allow us to better address these questions. The problem is that most organizations fail to realize the ROI, the return on investment, for their investments in analytics. Lots of discussion around firms. They're spending lots of money on data, lots of money on hiring the right people, on building these structures, and they're not really seeing the value out of those investments. Now, why might they not be getting the return on these? Certainly, there have been issues around skills, that certain employees don't have the right skills that they need to do the jobs for any number of reasons, and this becomes a real challenge, and one of the things we've been trying to address with a program like this. Maybe there's a lack of good data. We get certain pieces that are available, but the parts we really need are not really there. Or maybe it's the difficulty of integrating data analytics with the rest of the organization. And as you could probably guess, this is where I'm going to lean throughout the course of this class. When I think about that, there's a handful of key pieces. It's things around asking sharp questions that create value for the firm, right? And I'll come back to those 2 points in later subsequent videos. Understanding what to do and especially what not to do based on the analysis that you're running, and designing organizations that allow you to take advantage of the analytics investments that you're making. So these 3 main issues are pieces we're going to come back to over and over again throughout this module to try and think about what we can do to help organizations get a better return on investment for their analytics investments. Now let me talk briefly about this class, the structure, what I'm asking of you, the assignments, and kind of what we're going to talk about when we get a chance to meet face-to-face. So this class the goal is to situate the use of analytics inside organizations. Throughout the program, you've been learning a lot about specific analytical tools, specific approaches that you can take, and the goal here is to try and help you think about this not just in terms of data science, but business analytics. What does it mean to do this inside of an organization in some way? So moving just beyond the mechanicals to thinking about what does it mean to try and answer real questions, and what does it mean to do this within an organization? The goal is to help you consider ways to kind of leverage analytics to help you create a competitive advantage in the organization. And as opposed to teaching you a whole bunch of new tools or many specific new tools, the goal is going to be to help you understand how to deploy some of the tools you've been learning throughout the program to try and help you address some of these things. It's structured, the course is structured really around three main questions, especially kind of impediments. When I say impediments, I'm talking about the things that prevent organizations from capturing the real value that they want to from their investments in analytics. The first is not asking good questions, not asking questions in the right way, or not being able to think about how to frame the questions and state the questions in a way that helps create value. The second is about not understanding what kind of actions you can and cannot take based upon the analytical output of what you've been able to generate. This is partly around thinking about the challenges of forecasting. There's going to be pieces that they're going to bring up causal inference issues that you discussed with Professor Siemens earlier in the program. And then we're going to discuss very specifically around the data generating process and what the implications are then for making decisions. And the last is really looking at the design of the organization, the way in which the organization structure, processes, rules affect the ability to actually create and capture value from your analytics investments. So overall, structure-wise, other than the kind of this introduction piece that that I'm asking you to do as kind of a first assignment, everything else is kind of organized around these three questions, these three impediments: asking questions, taking action, and designing organizations. As you can see, the pre-module leans much more heavily on asking questions and a little bit on taking action. The in-class is going to be a balance mostly between taking action and designing organizations, and then the post-module is mostly around org design type issues. As the syllabus lays out, the first introductory assignment is to be done at an individual level, helping you think about your own organization, their investments in analytics, and what is or is not working. You'll also spend time before we come together doing some financial ratio analysis in small groups around Boston Brewing Company, and a larger, much more substantial individual assignment using data on Home Depot and Lowe's. The Boston Brewing Company piece is really to help build the data set that we will then discuss in class. It'll be a small data set, small pieces of data, but still we're going to use that to try and think about how we ask questions. The Home Depot and Lowe's is, as I mentioned, the most substantial kind of pre-module assignment as part of this. Is a pretty significant commitment to try and think through what is going on and answer the questions that I lay out for you. The last assignment really to be done before coming into class is doing one round of the simulation of the Back Bay battery. We'll do more in class, and I'll give you free rein to do it as many times as you'd like after that. But I just need you to come into class kind of knowing how the thing works and what the challenges are for doing it. The other pieces to do in the pre-module are much more kind of reading, video, kind of helping you get us understanding. There's a piece on correlations that we'll talk about more when we come into class. There's a data set on baseball. There's a video that goes with it explaining kind of what it is that I would like you to be able to do with it. To the extent you can get a chance to play around with it before we come in, that's great. But we will discuss it as a group in class when we meet face-to-face, and then I'll give you a different data set in class to work with. And then the last piece is around designing organizations and org change. There's a video on organizational change that you should watch first, and then you should read a very old but still a very good case on the New York Police Department that really presages a lot of the use of analytics in organizations from a long time ago, but also helps us think about org change in some very specific ways. In class, we'll do the Boston Brewing Company exercise with the financial ratios. I will walk you through my approach to Home Depot and Lowe's, and we'll talk a lot about how other ways we could do it and hear from people in class about how you've approached it. We'll run through the Back Bay battery simulation, talk about forecasting. We'll talk a little bit about correlation and causality, again, hearkening back to stuff that you discussed with Professor Siemens earlier. And then we'll discuss the baseball data that I gave you before coming to class in some specific detail. We'll talk about the data generating process and how and why it's important. Then I'll give you some time in groups to work on some new data that I'll show you there, pretty straightforward and simple. And then we'll do an exercise around an amusement park called PortAventura in the last bit in class, thinking about designing organizations. The main post-module piece is a follow-up to the pre-module piece you did on impediments, where you'll work in groups to try and think about how you can get around some of the problems that you identified in the pre-module assignment based on all the discussions we've been having in class. That kind of lays out the basic structure. Here's kind of the details on evaluation and grading. A lot of this is in the pre-module, mainly around the Home Depot and Lowe's. The other pieces are kind of smaller, specific pieces, kind of to help get you started, so we're ready to go in class when we come and meet face-to-face. In class, there'll be a piece that's around participation and kind of being actively engaged, as well as 2 group exercises that we'll do on day 2 in class that will be part of your grade as well. And then the post-module group assignment on impediments is kind of another major piece of evaluation around the course. A little bit about me, since we haven't had a chance to meet face-to-face. I majored in 18th and 19th century U.S. history as an undergraduate, got my MBA from Emory University focusing on strategy, spent a number of years as a consultant working on strategy, innovation, technology-related issues before getting my PhD and then coming here to NYU. Spent some time as a political consultant, did my MBA internship at Johnson & Johnson Company, as I mentioned, working in strategy consulting, a couple different firms, a bunch of different clients. Happy to talk more about that to the extent that you're interested. Teaching-wise, there's kind of a few main things that I do. I teach both the core and a capstone elective strategy class. I teach about analytics and organizations, primarily through this program, but through other pieces as well. And I'm both the director of the new technology-focused MBA program we have, as well as the vice dean for MBA and graduate programs. Research-wise, my interest is in strategy, specifically around technology strategy and how managers make decisions under conditions of significant uncertainty. Thinking about especially the uncertainty posed by new technologies. So for example, some of my research has looked at when there's new technologies in the market and firms bet on a new technology that never ends up being successful, what are the implications for the organization, financially, behaviorally, learning-wise, things like that. I've got a couple different offices in the school. My main office would be the one in Tisch 715. There's my email, my Twitter handle, and my LinkedIn. I look forward to getting a chance to meet all of you face-to-face coming up soon.